We have a lot of exciting things going on here
Yep.
at the Fitz Group. One of the events that we just finished in July we called it Summer Slam. We're working right now towards the Fitz Fall, what are we calling it? Fitz Fall Fest.
Fitz Fall Fest. A lot of
Yes, we like alliteration. We work hard at that. But we have that coming up this fall in October. And if you're part of our membership team, part of our local organization with TFG, we definitely encourage you to go to the registration website. What is that?
thefitzgroup.org/event registration.
Great. And learn more about these events that we have going on. But what I wanted to tell you is that we have just exciting growth. The best days are ahead of us, and just a really special team. I mean, we really came away from SummerSlam remembering how special our team is and our organization. And one of the events that helped us remember that was our time that we had with our leadership team before the main event.
Right.
And we spent some time with them, and we, as a team, we talked in depth and very, really authentically and intimately about three main just concerns or questions or things that great leaders do. Would be the best way to say that. And last podcast, if you listened to it, the first one was we talked about how to think differently. So today we're going to talk to you about the second one, and the next podcast coming out will be about the third topic that we talked about, which is what great leaders do. So what great leaders do is they solve problems.
Yeah.
Now, if you're listening to my voice today, I am 100% sure that you have a problem.
Because you're breathing.
What? You have a problem.
Yep.
As a leader, if you're going to choose to think differently and choose to be a great leader, then you're going to look for the solution to that problem. How do we solve problems for ourselves and for the people that are following us? How do we solve problems for our kids, for the next generation? How do we solve problems for people who are looking to us to inspire them? And that's what we're going to talk about today, is really how do you identify the solution to the problem. Unfortunately, I can't specifically probably solve your specific problem today, but we're going to help you in the thought process of helping you find that solution to your problem over these next few minutes we have together.
Yeah. And you know, one thing that I really think in identifying and solving a problem is first admit that you're not actually in control. Right. I mean, I think that a lot of leaders feel like leadership is about controlling the situation as opposed to leading the situation. And there's two very different things. Control is an absolute illusion. I talk to people. We lead people all the time in helping them establish their own small business. And I ask them a lot of times, like, what do you most desire? Why are you building your own business? Why don't you just go get a 9-to-5? Why are you starting something like this? And the answer kind of all falls under the category of autonomy. I like the idea of being independent and free to do my own thing. And I get that. Trust me, I get that. The autonomy word is a big word in my vocabulary. I love that word. But there's no such thing as independence, really. We're all interdependent. You know, here we are coming out of the pandemic, coming out of it. I'm claiming that we're coming out of it, at least the talking about it. Like, I'm so sick of it. But we just realize that we're absolutely, but to me, it's like, okay, if you're so independent, why are you raising gas prices right now? Oh, you're not doing that? So you are interdependent with others? Lumber was an issue. So if you want to build a deck just like that, you know, the price of lumber is up, and now you got to take out a small fortune loan in order to build a deck on your house. But you're in charge. You're independent. So why are you raising the price of lumber? Oh, you didn't do that either? See, there's no real such thing as independence. We are all interdependent with one another and everyone around the world. And we have discovered that with the pandemic. I mean, when things getting shut down, and I was so used to just going to the grocery store and walking in, la-di-da, picking up what I needed, and now all of a sudden there's no toilet paper? Well, what did I do to cause the shortage in toilet paper? And you did nothing. It's called interdependence. Somebody else did it, and it affected you. And you got to really kind of grasp that if you're going to solve the problem, that you're not fully in control. You're sort of, it's a process of dealing with circumstances.
Yeah.
right? And leading through them that helps you find that solution.
That's right. I mean, like you said, we're laying out, as leaders, we're laying out a vision for them, but we're very aware that we have to lead them through it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like we did touch on in the last podcast. This is a great example of talking about what we cannot control, which is what's going on outside and all these ways that we are interdependent, versus controlling the choice to lead through the things that may easily knock us off course or knock the people that are following us off course. And as leaders, we've got to stay that beacon of light.
Yeah.
Through the situations that we cannot control. I think so that's one of a really important first thing to bear in mind as you're trying to solve a problem, is that we are leading through that problem. The other thing that's really important to do is to stop and look at every single problem as a possibility, as a new opportunity, and to reframe the problem into a solution. You know, I've thought it's interesting, again, after this pandemic, you know, one of the things, we live in a more city-type environment, and we became very aware of a lot of empty buildings around us and around where we live, even in our home. And, you know, it was interesting. Like, I remember when it first started happening, these empty buildings, I see a lot of people see that, and it's really easy to go down this dark road of like, wow, there's empty business buildings. I mean, how much more until we're all in a food stamp line? I mean, there's that feeling of this sense of loss and grief and despair. But a leader stops and looks at an empty building and says, well, that's a possibility. What can I do with an empty building? Yeah. And, you know, right now, the one on the corner by our street became a COVID testing center. But still, that may not be the greatest example. However, it still proves the point. Like, what are the things that are the empty buildings in your life that you have an opportunity or a possibility to create a solution? Every problem is an opportunity.
You know, and going with that, when the pandemic hit us in March of 2020, our business, our industry, when it hit us, all of a sudden we're like, we can't go see people. Our industry was labeled as essential, and we're labeled as essential workers because we sell life insurance. It's an important thing, vital thing, essential, you might even say. And we stayed in business, but we had to reshape it. We had to reframe it. And, you know, we've had a couple of people that figured out how to just sell over the phone. And the insurance companies, like after 20 years of saying we had to see people in person, they changed their opinion in about 20 seconds, realizing they were going to have a problem if they didn't reframe their thought process and change the structure. But we've had people now that do that. And most of our agents at this point, if they're working what we call a lead, somebody who's just asked us to contact them to sell them insurance, we're having to go see those people in person, but we're able to follow up with clients and add additional sales based on what the clients need down the road. We can do that over the phone or using Zoom, and that's just been something that has just changed in the last 18 months at this point in our business, and it changed out of opportunity. But instead of going, oh God, we're out of business, instead we looked at it and said, okay, shift it. How can this positively affect what we're doing? There's so many businesses that come out of adverse times like that. During the last mortgage crash in 07, 08, 09, in that window, there's a lot of businesses that launched out of that. I'm looking at, like, we use Zoom all the time for meetings. Zoom is a company that really exploded through this pandemic and is just doing, you know, phenomenally. But I also think, you know, in jest, and if thinking funny here, like I think about, you know, my golf game is a process of reframing the situation, because I'm on the tee box and I hit a shot and I'm like, I know what I want to do on this hole, and then I hit my tee shot and I'm in the woods, and I could just go, I quit, I'm in the woods, this sucks. But I'm outside, I'm playing golf, I like it. It's like the one thing in my life I don't try to compete at. I'm just having fun, and instead of getting all wrapped up and twisted in how awful that shot was and how there's no way I'm ever going to get out of these woods, instead now, I mean, the guys who play golf with me they've heard me at least once every 18 holes say, at least once every hole maybe, guys, keep an eye on the hole, something awesome is about to happen. Like, there's an opportunity, I have an opportunity for something incredible to happen. And you know what's crazy? A lot of times great stuff happens. Like, I'm not a good golfer, but all of a sudden, just because I changed that opinion, I think, of the situation I was in, rather than trying to change getting into the situation, I'm already in it. Now I've got to reframe it and go, okay, well, how can I move forward on this Oh, I see a little hole right there through the woods. I can hit the ball. And okay, just try it. What if it doesn't work? So what? Then you get another opportunity to do something great. And you just keep getting opportunities. Eventually, you're going to hit on one. It's going to be greatness, right?
Yeah, I think the last thing that we want to talk about when you're finding, once you've found your solution, or as you're turning a problem into a solution, you've got to deliver that solution, and you've got to lead with passion. And you've got to guard your heart against apathy setting in. And this is such an important point, because the thing about a problem is it's like it has a silent whisper in your heart that's like, give up. You're not going to make it. Don't do this. This is a bad way. Don't come this way, right? And so that's why as leaders, it's just so easy when we face problems, particularly on the days when we face an abundance of problems, when you just feel like it's coming at you from all sides. It's really easy that apathy can set into our hearts. And then we can go and try to deliver a solution and not really believe it deep in our hearts. And the people we lead, they can kind of sniff it out. And it's so important that this kind of goes back to the last podcast when we talked about how great leaders are able to inspire themselves. They're able to change the way that they think about something. So as you as a leader go decide, I'm going to be fired up every time I face a problem, because it's an opportunity to find a solution and lead people to a better tomorrow. When we go into these problems and delivering these solutions with that type of attitude, we can then inspire those following us to also push past their problems and find solutions. And I think that the better we get at this as leaders, the better we grow. Like the more we face problems and we overcome them, the more convinced we become that it is better on the other side of the problem. But I do want to say that sometimes that apathy can set in, and it can set in kind of deep. And because it's a hopelessness. That's what problems give us, is a sense of hopelessness. And hopelessness can make your heart sick. And so it's very important as a leader for you to recognize, hey, if I'm in that place, you need to do something to get yourself out of that place. You need to go to a trusted mentor. You need to find a counselor. You need to go to a safe place and get yourself back to believing again that overcoming problems is what you're passionate about. Because as great leaders, like, our passion and desire is to make life better for other people. Well, if I don't believe deep down inside that tomorrow really can be better, how can I possibly lead someone to that same conclusion? So it is so much on us as leaders that we continue to lead with passion and believe and fight that battle of hopelessness and believe for a better tomorrow. And that's what will make the difference as we go to solve these problems.
Yeah, and when I think about apathy setting in, it certainly has hit me in the years. You know, in the last podcast, we talked about the ebb and flow of Recruiting Saga over a couple of decades of hiring agents. And I talked about how I hired this person, didn't train them, and then fired them, and then hired this person, didn't train them, and fired them, talking about recruiters. And eventually we had 9 recruiters in the office and 2 initial dialers, never trained them. And apathy was there. I mean, it was a good 5 years of apathy when I hired that big recruiting staff. And then it was another 2 years, or maybe a year and a half after that it was just like, you know what, I'm going to throw money at this. I'm going to keep pouring money into this problem, and it's going to fix itself. And because I wasn't passionate about it, I wasn't leading with passion. Instead, I was apathetic. I wasn't paying attention to the numbers, really. And when I started looking at the numbers going, okay, this is what I'm paying and this is what I'm getting back, this result sucks. Then I started pausing, taking the time and sitting with the people that were doing the work and realizing that they weren't trained. And that was on me. I didn't train them, and they didn't know what they were doing. And as soon as I got rid of that apathy of, I don't care, it's just going to work itself out, but instead now cared about it, and I showed them that I cared about their performance and their job, and I wanted them to excel, all of a sudden it changed. That it changed because we were able to identify the solution to the problem and move forward. So, I don't know. Does that help?
That's awesome. Yep. Make sure you're with us next time. We're going to talk about how we inspire as leaders.
Hey, now that you know, you know.
You know.